Ever have one of those days where you're just like trying to pick a restaurant for dinner and your brain's like, you're gonna pick wrong. Everyone will judge you.
Yeah.
Just stay home. Who needs that?
Right.
That kind of negativity. Right. That's our inner critic in action.
Yeah.
And today we're figuring out
Yeah.
how to hit mute on that voice.
And it's so important to remember we all have that voice.
Right.
It's not about achieving
Yeah.
some impossible state of never having a negative thought. You know, this deep dive is all about understanding how to manage those thoughts.
Okay.
Especially when they're holding us back.
You provided us with the article, Shutting Down Your Inner Critic is Easy, actually. Become your biggest fan overnight. And I gotta say, that title alone got my inner critic all fired up. But the article dives into some really interesting strategies.
Yeah.
Starting with this idea of the inner critic as outdated software.
Okay.
What's the deal with that?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're still using the same phone you had in middle school.
Oh, God.
Chances are you'll be running pretty slow.
Yeah,
Some of the apps might be glitching.
totally.
And good luck trying to download anything new.
Yeah.
Our inner critic can be like that.
Okay.
Stuck in old patterns and beliefs that might have served us once, but now just cause unnecessary stress.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So, like, if I still panicked about presentations the same way I did in 5th grade, that's my old programming acting up.
Exactly.
Yeah. But how do we even begin to spot those outdated thought patterns?
Right.
It feels like they're just always there,
Yeah.
lurking in the shadows.
It can be sneaky.
Yeah.
The article highlights some common signs.
Okay.
Look out for phrases like, I can't do this, or what if I fail?
Yeah.
Those automatic negative thoughts that pop up.
Right.
Especially when you're trying something new or stepping outside your comfort zone.
What if I fail?
Right.
Oh, my inner critic knows that one by heart. It's
Right.
like its theme song.
Exactly.
So once we've spotted those thoughts,
Yeah.
what's the next move? Just tell them to shut up.
While tempting, the article suggests a more strategic approach.
Okay.
It talks about questioning the validity of those thoughts.
Okay.
Ask yourself, is that thought really true? Like, what evidence do I have to support it?
Okay.
It's like playing detective with your own brain.
Okay, so we're gathering evidence.
Exactly.
Not just jumping to conclusions.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what happens when the evidence seems, well, kind of overwhelming? Like, what if past experiences have actually reinforced those negative beliefs?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
This idea of challenging our thoughts aligns with techniques used in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Okay. CBT?
It's about learning to identify.
Yeah, I've heard that's super helpful for a lot of things.
It is. It
Yeah,
is. And ultimately reframe those negative thought patterns.
So we're not just suppressing those negative thoughts,
Right.
but actively engaging with them and trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. The goal isn't to pretend those negative thoughts don't exist,
Yeah,
but rather to develop a more balanced perspective.
right.
And one of the ways the article suggests doing this is by replacing those negative thought patterns
Okay.
with what it calls positive affirmations.
I have to admit, whenever I hear positive affirmations,
Yeah.
I get a little skeptical.
Right.
It feels a bit like trying to convince myself of something that just isn't true.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's not about suddenly declaring yourself the world champion of something you've never tried.
Right.
It's about shifting the tone of that internal dialogue.
Okay.
Imagine your best friend is about to give a presentation.
Okay.
Would you tell them, you're going to mess this up?
No.
It's going to be awful. Yeah.
Definitely not. I'd be like, you've got this.
Right.
You're going to crush it.
Exactly. And that's the kind of energy we want to bring to our own self-talk.
Okay.
It's about offering ourselves the same kindness and encouragement we'd give to someone we care about.
Right. So instead of doom and gloom, it's more like pep talk mode.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even with the best pep talk, that inner critic loves to bring up perfectionism.
Right.
Like, if you can't do it flawlessly,
Yeah.
why even bother?
It's true. The article talks about how perfectionism can really sabotage our progress.
Totally.
It gives that inner critic even more ammunition to use against us.
Yeah.
And for many people, this is where those old thought patterns really dig in.
Totally. And it feels like everywhere we look, people are only showing their highlight reels, making it even harder to embrace our own imperfections.
Right.
So how do we even begin to disarm this perfectionism bomb?
Yeah.
It feels like it's wired into our systems.
It's definitely a process, not a quick fix.
Okay.
One powerful strategy the article mentions is focusing on progress over perfection.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging that everyone makes mistakes,
Right.
even those we see as incredibly successful. Remember, even Olympic athletes were once beginners.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Right.
But it's still so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, sure, they might have stumbled a few times, but look at them now.
I hear you. It's easy to get caught in that comparison trap, especially in the age of social media.
Yeah.
But what if instead of focusing on other people's highlight reels,
Yeah.
we shifted our attention to curating our own supportive environments.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with good vibes only. But how does that actually work in practice?
Think of it like this. Who are the people in your life who lift you up?
Okay.
Who celebrate your wins, both big and small?
Yeah.
Those are the voices you want to amplify.
Okay.
And on the flip side,
Right.
are there certain social media accounts or even individuals who consistently bring you down?
Yeah.
It might be time to hit the unfollow button or set some healthy boundaries.
It's about being mindful of the information we're consuming.
Exactly.
And the people we're surrounding ourselves with. Basically creating a positive feedback loop to
Right.
drown out those negative thought spirals.
Yeah.
Love it. Now, the article also mentions some specific daily practices that can help quiet the inner critic. One that jumped out at me was keeping a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
Is that really as helpful as some people say?
It really can be.
Okay.
And it's such a simple practice.
Right.
Taking even just a few minutes each day to reflect on things you're grateful for can shift your perspective in a big way.
Right.
It's about actively training your mind to focus on the positive, which can help quiet that inner critic.
So it's like building those mental muscles for positivity.
Exactly.
Kind of like how we talked about rewiring those neural pathways earlier.
Precisely.
Okay.
And speaking of building muscles, another practice the article highlights is the importance of celebrating small wins.
Celebrating small wins.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Sometimes it's those little victories that keep us going.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in waiting for those big life-changing milestones.
Right.
But acknowledging those smaller steps forward can make a huge difference.
So instead of, I need to get promoted to feel successful,
Right.
it's more like, hey, I crushed that presentation today.
Exactly.
Go me.
That's exactly the kind of energy we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing and celebrating those incremental achievements.
Okay.
Those small victories build momentum and fuel our motivation to keep going.
Okay, so we're curating our environment, practicing gratitude,
Right.
celebrating the small wins.
Right.
All great strategies. But what about those moments when that inner critic just won't quit? You know, those days when those negative thoughts feel deafening.
Right.
The article briefly touched on affirmations,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to explore that a bit further.
Okay.
What's the deal with those? Are they really as effective as some people say?
Affirmations can be incredibly powerful.
Okay.
But it's important to approach them with the right mindset.
Okay.
It's not about repeating empty phrases and hoping for a miracle.
Right.
It's about consciously choosing to rewire those negative thought patterns
Okay.
by consistently feeding your mind with positive, empowering statements.
So instead of saying, I'm not good enough,
Right.
it's about shifting to something like, I am capable of learning and growing.
Exactly. It's about speaking to yourself with the same kindness and encouragement you'd offer a friend.
Yeah.
And just like any new skill, consistency is key.
Right.
The more you practice catching those negative thoughts and consciously replacing them with affirmations, the more ingrained those positive pathways become.
So it's like we're literally rewiring our brains.
Exactly.
Training ourselves to default to a more supportive inner dialogue.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing when you think about it. But it also makes me think about those times when those old thought patterns resurface. Is that inevitable?
Yeah.
Will we ever truly silence that inner critic?
It's important to remember that this is a journey,
Okay.
not a destination.
Right.
There will be days when those old thought patterns resurface.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yep.
It's about recognizing them for what they are, outdated software, and choosing not to let them control our actions.
So it's not about achieving some state of perpetual positivity,
Right.
but rather building that resilience.
Yeah.
That ability to bounce back from setbacks
Exactly.
without getting stuck in a spiral of self-doubt.
Exactly. And as you continue on this journey, remember to celebrate your progress.
Okay.
Acknowledge how far you've come in shifting your mindset. It's easy to get caught up in striving for some ideal version of ourselves.
Right.
But true growth comes from embracing the journey, imperfections and all.
This has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
So to wrap things up, it seems like the key takeaway here is that silencing our inner critic isn't about never having a negative thought again. It's about understanding where those thoughts stem from, actively challenging their validity, and consciously cultivating a more supportive inner voice.
Yeah.
It's a process, not a destination. And like any worthwhile journey, it's one that requires patience, self-compassion,
Absolutely.
and a healthy dose of humor.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to those internal voices.
Okay.
And to create a more empowering and fulfilling inner landscape.
And you know what? Maybe in quieting our own inner critics,
Yeah.
we might just inspire others to do the same. Now that's a thought worth amplifying.